This meeting, one chance, is what the Japanese philosopher told us centuries ago. We have one opportunity in this form, in this lifetime, to bring toward life whatever it is we want to bring. To live a life as big as we can live, to have it flourish, to have it rise and swell and bring forward all that we want. The question is, how do we do that? And how do we sustain it, even when times are difficult? My name is Sirois. I'm a clinical psychologist and an inspirational speaker, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit, just for a moment, about resiliency, which is the key to that whole question of how to live a large life, even in the presence of suffering, a sudden change, like a job loss, or a tragedy. How do we rise anyway? Now, resiliency, interestingly enough, is something that we used to talk about as something that a few people had and most people didn't. And what we now know after 20 plus years of positive psychology research is that most of us are resilient most of the time. But resiliency can be amplified. It can be strengthened. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about what resiliency means and how we strengthen it. And then in 2 following tapes, we'll talk about 2 of the cornerstones of resiliency, signature strengths, and the idea, the notion of the choir, connection, and how we are supported in this world. Whatever our journey is, how we find those who help sustain us on our journey. So a little bit of the definition: resiliency is the capacity to adapt to change healthfully. Metaphorically, it's the tree bending in the wind. If you want to think of images from popular culture, it would be Christopher Reeves, for example, post-spinal cord injury. What that man had to show us about living life large, from a full heart, a completely engaged strategic mind, even in the presence of horrific paralysis. That is a resilient human being. And what are the characteristics of what it means to be resilient? Well, they're pretty straightforward. And as I tell you them, I'd invite you to note or circle, at least in your mind, those qualities that you already have, that are already true to you. Because as we go along, you'll learn that resilient folk are the ones who lean on their strengths, not so much their vulnerabilities. A resilient person, first of all, feels in control of his or her own life. They don't feel in control of life, which we all know. We don't have much control over life. Nor do they worry so much about controlling other people's lives. They've given that up a long time ago. What they really spend their time and their energy and their heart on is their own particular life. Because the locus of change, how we transform, is right here in the moment we've been given. And the moment we've been given is the moment of the present. Okay? So resilient folk pay attention to their own lives. They bring humor forward whenever they can. They look for what is a little bit odd, a little bit quirky, a little bit unexpected, and allow themselves to laugh and enjoy that, even in the middle of grieving, for example. Right? A resilient person will look to bring meaning to what is happening, or believe in general that things happen for a reason, right? Some of us do believe that things happen for a reason. And those of us who don't, if we are resilient, will know that at some point in the future we will look back and say, this had meaning for me. And the meaning that we make will have a positive valence to it, a positive tone. We'll find a way to understand what has happened from the point of view of something that is life energizing, life enlivening, enriching. A resilient person will stay calm enough to be able to engage all parts of herself or himself. Some of us, for example, not me necessarily, but immediately when the phone call comes in the middle of the night, for example, will lean on their clear strategic mind. Some of us will go immediately into an understanding of the emotions that are being engaged, the worry, the anxiety, the not knowing, the confusion. Some of us will long immediately to get connected. Some of us will want to bring our creativity to bear. We'll immediately start thinking of the poets or the artists, what they had to teach us about suffering. There are many doorways into resiliency. But in general, we can say this, that a resilient person will stay calm enough to engage those parts of himself or herself that can actually move them forward. And this calmness is something that we're going to touch on a little bit more later on, because it's very, very important. A resilient person stays connected. That old myth that we have many of us had growing up, that we had to do it all by ourselves. We had to simply pull ourselves up by a bootstrap. Well, that really is truly just a myth. Those of us who do well riding life's waves are those of us who stay connected and actually know where to turn to for help, and then actually go and get that help. And here's an understanding. We don't need a posse. We don't need to be the most popular person in the community or the school or the office or the room. We need one or two good people. And that is something that we're going to talk about later on in the third videotape on the choir, the notion of connection in the choir. And finally, those of us who are resilient understand that we need to turn the question of life away from why me or why is this happening, which are questions that actually shrink us, and move toward those questions that actually engage our heart in as open a manner as possible. The question, for example, that Viktor Frankl brought to us after the Holocaust in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. Who am I, he said, in the presence of this? Who am I in the presence of this? A resilient person will turn toward that question. Even in the face of this, even in the face of this loss, this surprise, this tragedy, this sudden but positive but very sudden change, who am I in the presence of this? There are 3 things that we can do right now to strengthen our own resiliency. The first is to practice mindfulness. It doesn't matter what the form is, whether it's some form of meditation or yoga or journaling or quiet walking. But those of us who are strong within ourselves are those often who have spent a little time every day being quiet with oneself. Mindfulness increases our immune system response. It increases our sense of relaxation. It engages the heart and the mind and the soul. And we need all of us to bear when we are facing life's waves. Second, we can begin to live more authentically. Some of us are not living our own lives. Some of us are in the wrong bed or the wrong job, wearing the wrong clothes with the wrong briefcase, getting on the wrong train, and we know it. We know that we have stepped into someone else's play, and we keep waiting for them to call our name, and they'll never call our name. And meanwhile, over on the other side of town, there's a play that's waiting to go on. It's our life. And they keep calling us. And as long as we are in the wrong play, we'll never get there. So right now, whatever you can do, ask yourself, for example, this one question. If my life were 10% more authentic today, what would that mean? And go there. Go there. That will build your resiliency. Third, a resilient person knows to move toward whatever it is that sustains you. What brings you joy, what makes you laugh, what engages your creativity, what engages your mind fully, what brings meaning to the world for you, how are you impassioned in this life. If we go there, as we move there every day, we begin to feel and know that we are living life and playing it for keeps. And that in and of itself brings energy into the system. It connects us to like-hearted, like-minded people. It broadens our sense of optimism. It contributes to that sense of control in our life. And it brings forward within us the sense that this world, even as it is, with all of its suffering, has something wondrous and tremendous to offer us. So thank you. Stay tuned for the other 2 tapes that are coming up soon, one on signature strengths and one on the notion of the choir. And together we are going to strengthen what it means to be a resilient person, particularly for you.